I have so much to do. There's so many things I would love to get done. What I would say is if you have, especially on a quarterly basis or even annual, if you have more than, say, 5 or 6 goals or strategic priorities for a given period of time, you might as well have 20. And if you have 20, you might as well have 0.
Rise Up with Rise Growth Partners. Joe Duran and the Rise team share hard-won lessons from building top wealth management firms, showing you what it takes to create a lighthouse brand that inspires clients, attracts talent, and fuels growth.
Welcome back to Rise Up with Rise Growth Partners. I'm Jennifer Geoghegan, Chief Marketing Officer at Rise. I'm here today with my colleague, Stacy Coffey. Stacy is a Managing Director and Head of Advisor Partnerships here at Rise, which means she works really closely with the leadership teams and advisors of the firms that we support. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Today, we're talking about a topic that you spend a lot of time thinking about and actioning with our firms, which is strategic planning. Some people's favorite topic, some people's least favorite topic. I often say firms who are into strategic planning, even the ones who enjoy the practice, they often still complain because they do an offsite somewhere fun, they generate some content, they feel like they have a plan, but if they honestly look at it 6 months, 12 months later, they feel like they've made very little progress. Is that what you find as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've described a lot of it perfectly. Firms have the absolute best intentions. And like you said, they can go to a fun offsite. They often get a lot of energy from the collaboration, which is wonderful. That's a great output. They often gain some alignment around what they feel is important as a group. But one of the things that you mentioned that I think is really true, that is a red flag right off the bat, is when they look back at it in 6 or 12 months. Well, if we look back at a strategic plan in 6 or 12 months, and that's the first time we're taking another look at it after the fun offsite, then we're probably off track right from the beginning. Because strategic plans, while they have a long-term vision, they also 9 times out of 10 are going to have some very short-term, practical and very tactical steps in order to start kind of marching that ball down the field, if you will.
So, Stacy, you mentioned that some don't look at it for a period of time. It sort of goes on the shelf. And I also think back to when people used to print them, make sure like they looked beautiful, and then again, they go on the shelf. What other mistakes do you see when a plan is not working, is not being actioned?
Yeah. Well, I think you really hit the first one right out of the park here, because I don't know. I often would equate strategic planning for an RIA very similarly to financial planning for your clients. So for your end clients, which, you can have a wonderful meeting. You can come up with a beautiful plan. You can collect all the data in the world from these clients and really feel like you've done this almost perfectly. But if the client takes that plan home, either digitally or hard copy, whatever the case may be, but if they take that plan home and they set it on the shelf, or even worse, they put it right in the garbage, that perfect plan means absolutely nothing. Just because you have a plan doesn't mean that you're doing anything with it. So, I think most advisors out there know that a huge amount of their value comes from being that accountability partner with their client. So yes, they help them come up with this plan. They really understand their client's vision and why they're investing their money. Same thing with RIAs. We get really clear on the vision, everybody gets aligned. But if we go home, back to our workspaces and then set that plan on the shelf, or just don't look at it for 6 to 12 months, having the plan itself does us no good. So while you might get energy and alignment and enthusiasm, like we talked about, the really important pieces coming out of that are to take that energy and enthusiasm and alignment and do something with it. So number one, decide when you're going to check on that plan next and make sure that everybody on the team knows exactly what they're responsible for. Should we have some sort of scorecard that is helping us track where we are with each one of the prioritized initiatives that we decided upon? Who owns it? Very clearly. And we talk about this a lot at Rise. Who's the one name behind this?
That word accountability, which we talk about
all the time. And, we try to practice what we preach here. So, the strategic planning process that we use here at Rise is one that we really promote with our firms as well. And it's a combination of a lot of well-known practices out there. We've just kind of made it our own. So it's highly applicable to the RIA business and to the model that we're supporting. But at the end of the day, if we don't have a name behind some of these initiatives, then we don't know who to go back to. And we also don't know who to go to when an issue might come up. So you might be aware of something that the project owner or the initiative owner isn't aware of. We need to know exactly who to go to shortcut any sort of bureaucracy that might get created around this. You mentioned accountability. Accountability and bureaucracy are very, very different things. Accountability, we need to have a high accountability gene to make these strategic plans really work. And that's things like timelines and names and ownership that we just talked about. Bureaucracy is how many steps do I have to take in order to resolve something or get something to progress. And we're trying to maximize accountability while really minimizing bureaucracy. So to go back to the financial planning analogy, if you give a client a plan and you know that their prioritized next steps are number 1, 2, and 3, and you haven't heard from them in a quarter, you probably need to check in sooner than that, maybe on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and say, hey, I know when you walked away, we were talking about having number 1 done by the end of February. Is number 1 done yet? And it's the same thing on the strategic planning front. We make sure that we have timelines around these and ownership around these. But really, as a team, it's also really important to check in and make sure that your teammates with their own initiatives are accomplishing what they want to and aren't running into problems that can't be resolved.
Yes. And I think you mentioned earlier the energy people have coming out of those sessions. I do feel like often leadership team members or advisors who have a stake in one of the initiatives, they do come out with energy. They do want to help. Everybody has the best intentions, but if you don't have that accountability, you're likely going to fall short.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the other thing, Jennifer, I'd make sure that sometimes we gloss over is that the vision is really, really clear. So that can sometimes feel like the least tangible part of strategic planning is the vision setting, because we're talking about 3 to 5 years out. It's kind of like talking to, and you'd relate to this, I'm sure, a college student about retirement planning. This is a very intangible concept to a lot of folks. They wonder, why would I put money aside now for something that's not going to materialize for 20, 30, 40 years? Strategic planning, shorter time frame. Optimally, we look at 3 to 5 years at the maximum. But how are we getting to those? Getting to that vision is really where most of us gravitate towards. But making sure you're really clear on what the vision is, I think, is a huge first step that sometimes gets overlooked. It's often the CEO or the leadership team that's setting that vision. But unless you're able to really fully describe it and almost draw a picture of it, you're not on the same page yet. If you're the one coming up with the vision and it's in your mind, everybody else is deaf and blind to that vision until you can accurately paint that picture and make sure that you're kind of all on the same team moving in the right direction. The last thing you want is a bunch of people gung-ho and enthusiastic about racing towards a point that you don't want to go to. So getting to that really crystal clear vision up front is absolutely key.
I agree. I don't know if you ever read this book. I highly recommend it. It's called Vivid Vision.
Is it this one?
Funny. That was not planned.
No, it wasn't. And here's all my notes and markups that I have in it. But I keep this one on hand a lot just because I have to run a lot of these strategy and vision planning sessions.
Oh, that's so funny, Stacy. We've never talked about this before. I highly recommend this book to everyone listening. It's great for your business. It's great for your life. And the short brief notes on it are basically you should be able to close your eyes and picture yourself in that space, in that business 3 years from now, and imagine everything about it. So really articulating, the marketer in me loves it too, because it takes strategy and it's a little bit of marketing, but helping everyone to really see it. Because it just gets you started on that path of alignment.
Yeah, there's a great part. Sorry to interrupt you. There's a great part at the beginning of that book that always stands out to me. And I agree with you. The book's great because it's short, it's sweet, and it's actually practical. There are exercises that you can do in that to really crystallize and clarify your vision. But one of the things that starts out the book is him describing the beginning scenes to The Sound of Music. I don't know if you remember this part or not.
Yes.
But if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Julie Andrews twirling in the Alps, and she's got like this black and white dress on, and it's, there's mountains everywhere, and it's very clear in my head. However, if you've never seen that movie and then you have somebody else describe that scene to them, they have no idea what you're talking about, and they don't know what song is playing. They don't know that, if she's turning counterclockwise or clockwise as she's spinning. There's a lot of clarifying questions you could ask about that scene if you have no idea what the person's referring to. But I just go back to that and go, gosh, if I went and asked this team what the 3-year vision was, would they all paint a very, very similar picture? And where do we need to clarify more and zoom in a little bit more?
Love that. I'm thinking let's paint that vision a little bit more specifically for the group watching. What are some of the building blocks of a strategic plan? Like what goes in there? How do you get to a really solid, actionable strategic plan?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we want to make it short and simple. I mean, I feel like if you can't fit your strategic planning document on one page, and I'll even give you a one-page front and back in case you happen to be extra wordy and want to be really detailed on your vision, which I get. But if we can't fit it on one page, it's basically brainstorming. We need to really get clarity out of this. And the way that we do it at Rise, and as I mentioned, this is what we do internally, and then it's what we do with our clients as well, is we build out what we call a strategic compass. That's our strategic planning document. And it really is made up of 5 different components. The first one is that 3 to 5 year vision that you and I have talked a bit about already. So really making sure over time that everybody is shooting for the same goal. So in 3 to 5 years, what does success look like? That might look like a certain amount of revenue. It might look like a certain amount of geographic expansion. It might look like hiring a certain number of people or expanding at a certain rate. So what are some of the ideas around the vision that are really, really important to you that we want to get clarified or clear on in 3 to 5 points? Again, we try to make this very simple. Mm-hmm. The other piece that goes hand in hand with that are what are the metrics of success that go along with that? So if it's successful, we will have X amount in revenue. We will have advisors producing X amount in revenue, or we will have expanded to 3 different Super Bowl cities as part of our strategic plan. Whatever the case may be, we need to have some measurable metrics around that so we know whether or not we've actually hit the goal or not. Things that we talk about a lot with our clients are net promoter score that come out of the surveys that you help our clients run, Jennifer. Are our clients happy? Are they happy, happier or less happy than other clients in the industry? That's a really important metric to look at because it's often a leading indicator as to whether or not they'll stay and what retention rates look like. So really determining what those 3 to 5 metrics of success over time are is really important as well. The one that I missed right off the bat that I should have led with is what are the firm's mission, purpose, and values? And I often think that, that going hand in hand with the vision really helps to paint a really nice picture of the firm and where they want to be, regardless of where they are right now. So if we take those...
Because often you hear firms, they might have a bold vision, but it's so important to them to maintain that culture, what makes them special. So I love having that right there to show you're rooted in that no matter what.
Yeah, you've been to several of these strategy sessions that we run, and oftentimes when we take a look back at the previous quarter's strategic compass, we still start with the firm's mission, purpose, and values, oftentimes because our firms have this tremendous culture that they do not want to lose regardless of the strategic planning that they do over time. Or they have to make a very intentional choice to say, this used to be one of our values. I don't think it is anymore. We should replace that or eliminate it from the overall strategic compass, which rarely happens. So we have the vision, we have the mission, purpose, and values, we have metrics of success. And then in the last 2 categories, we move into kind of the more tactical side of things. So from an annual perspective, what are our top 5 priorities? If we were to do nothing else this year, we know we would be successful if we accomplished 1 through 5. and getting the team really clear on that. So what they're shooting for kind of, I'd say in the medium term, makes sense. And those are very tangible or smart goals. They need to be measurable. They need to have some sort of person or accountability driver behind it. There's a timeline, etc. And then if we get even more tactical and take a smaller bite out of that giant strategic vision that we're shooting for, then it's, what are we doing this quarter? What are the tactical steps that we need to take this quarter in order to make sure that we're hitting first our annual priorities and then our longer term strategic vision? So we go from really big strategy and narrow it down to kind of bite-sized pieces, hopefully.
And for me, at times when I'm feeling like things are adding up, like more and more things on my plate, I feel like looking back at, well, what did we really say is most important for this year is really important, because there's always a long list of things you aspire to do. But what are the must-dos? So that helps me. And related to that, Stacy, how do you think about, there's so much stuff. Like often people want to add in, there's so many items. You could look at every part of the business and think of 10, 20 things that you would love to get done, but maybe that's not reasonable. How do you figure out what makes it in, what doesn't make it in?
Yeah, well, that's part of what these sessions are for. It's a great point, Jennifer, because I haven't run across an RIA that isn't busy lately. Right. That's for sure. I've never met one that says, we just don't have enough to do. Right. There's always aspirational plans. There's always clients calling. There is always, there are always compliance emails and legal items to deal with. And, the phone never stops ringing. So I get it. But what we don't want to do is confuse activity with progress. So number one, just revisiting that strategic compass, or whatever you'd like to call your planning document, revisiting that on a stated, consistent basis. So is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Who are you revisiting it with? Do we have the right people in the room? Just being disciplined about this is really half the battle. And some people say, gosh, I'm just not good at this. I'm not good at keeping track of when we're supposed to meet next, or who's accountable for what. This isn't about whether or not you're good at it. This is about whether or not you're disciplined at it. And often, I think you said this right at the beginning of our talk here, even people that love strategic planning, like myself, will get sick of it. And the reason behind that is because it becomes very monotonous if you're doing it the right way, because you're very, very disciplined about it. Okay, I know we have to revisit our mission, purpose, and values. I know they're not changing, but we still need to take a look at it. Okay, let's recrystallize that 3 to 5 year vision. Has anything changed there? We might be heading in one direction and decide to take a turn that we weren't expecting. That's okay. But we're going to go through this same process every single time. And then when we get into our actual strategy sessions where we decide what's important and what's not, I loved your point at the beginning of this question, which is, I have so much to do. There's so many things I would love to get done. What I would say is, if you have, especially on a quarterly basis or even annual, if you have more than, say, 5 or 6 goals or strategic priorities for a given period of time, you might as well have 20. And if you have 20, you might as well have 0. So, we have to be very intentional about what makes the cut and what doesn't. So, one question that I would ask right off the bat is this solving a short-term problem, or is this really building towards a long-term multiplier? So is this something that is going to really exponentially drive us towards our goals in the future? Or is this just a Band-Aid because I'm really sick of dealing with this particular topic right now? Both are important. There's no question. And honestly, you might want to get that smaller task off of your plate just to relieve some psychological burden. However, you got to keep that longer term vision in mind. And that's part of the importance of really documenting these strategic plans and making sure that everybody's aligned. Now that it's written down, we know what we're shooting for. There's no question, and nobody can claim ignorance around, well, I didn't know that was a priority, and I didn't know that I was supposed to, put this on the back burner. By the way, I'd always recommend no back burners, because that means you're taking some focus and direction away from the areas that you and the team really prioritize as your top initiatives.
It's almost like you're cheating on your plan.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I wanted to go back to the accountability piece. I find sometimes firms lean on that entrepreneurial gene. They talk about, well, we're really entrepreneurial, and then they get uncomfortable with making someone truly accountable. And then things start to slip. You see yellow flags, red flags, but nobody knows what to do about it, who's accountable. How do you combat that? You don't want to lose the entrepreneurialism, but you
Yeah.
likely won't be truly executing on the plan if you let that accountability piece go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of these are successful without a very high level of accountability, because this might be, at some point monotonous, and it might be repeatable, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And making sure that you're doing this in a disciplined fashion, as we talked about earlier, is some of the harder steps in this. Everybody loves to come up with a vision. That part's fun, but how do we actually turn it into practical steps? That's a little bit harder, and it's not quite as much fun. A couple of the things I would do is, number one, ask right up front. And this is similar to what I just referenced, but if we were to only do, as an example, 3 things this quarter, what would change the trajectory of our firm?
Mhm.
So if you are answering that these 3 things might change the direct trajectory of our firm, but there's still 7 things on the list, that means those other 7 things are probably maintenance related,
Mhm.
noise, or you could probably delegate some of those to
Mhm.
another team member or to somebody that happens to work on your behalf. Those aren't strategic priorities that take planning, discipline, and regular revisiting in order to accomplish. So we really want to get down to those 3 to 5. The other thing is try not to prioritize just what's loud.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people talk about the urgent and important boxes and all of that. I just break it down to, like, is this, one of my favorite partners says this, he'll know it when I say it, but is this signal or is this noise? And we really want to prioritize what compounds or what multiplies, like I said before, not just what is loud. We might have stuff that's loud and is not important, and we need to really recognize that despite the actual volume of that noise, it's still noise. So,
Yeah.
staying laser focused on what was actually detailed in the plan is critically important.
And reiterating maybe to the rest of the team who aren't as involved in driving the plan why certain things are not a priority, which is hard to do.
It is hard to do. Yeah, I completely agree with you. But I'd say, to the point of your question, entrepreneurs don't hate accountability. Look, all the entrepreneurs that I've met actually want to keep making progress and keep taking
Yeah.
steps forward. And it drives them crazy when you're moving too slowly, or when you're not taking a step forward, or even when you're taking a side step, which is sometimes the step you need to take. But they don't hate accountability. They hate that bureaucracy that we talked about
Yeah.
earlier, where it was like, hey, can I solve this in 2 steps? If I can, why would I take 7? And so removing some of the bureaucracy and adding to the accountability is actually, I think, a magic equation for entrepreneurs. It's the trudge. It's the, why did I have to
Yeah.
do this in this particular way when I could have solved it in a much easier fashion? That's what entrepreneurs hate.
Exactly. So we talked about a lot of great things, how to get to that vivid vision, how to put it into a plan. We talked about accountability at length. Stacy, if before we go, if I were to ask you, like, what's one piece of advice you would share with a leadership team who wants to get better at their visioning and strategic planning, what would you share with them?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 steps. The first one is the easiest of them all, and people laugh about it because it's been repeated so many times, and we all inherently know this, but still don't do it sometimes. And that is, write down your plan. So I don't care if you use the same 5 categories as we do. There's Scale Up out there. There's EOS. There's, read the book Traction. These will all help you develop these strategic plans. However, unless you write it down, whether it's in their format or your own format, it is less likely to stick. So number 1, just write it down. And then number 2, because we're assigning accountability to people, right? We're making sure that Jennifer's name is behind initiative 1, Stacy's name is behind initiative 2. But that doesn't mean that we have all the answers. So when you run into problems with your particular initiative, whether it be quarterly, annual, or even for the long-term vision, when you run into problems, don't own those problems as if you are alone in that silo. Share them with the team. You may still be responsible. Your name is still accountable for that. But I bet you that somebody on your team, if they're aware of the problem, can help you solve it, or they can think about it with you in a different way. And part of making progress on this is not just stating whether something is in red, yellow, or green status. It is, what is the plan to correct the yellows and reds so we can get them to green? And that should be transparent. That shouldn't be one person just owning this problematic secret.
And
it's how do we solve this in the team?
That's the collaboration. And I also find I love firms starting with a big vision, because everything we talked about, they might not hit every single metric exactly when you look back 3 years, 5 years from now. But if nothing else, they will have made tremendous progress and they'll feel really good. It might not look exactly like that vivid vision, but they could feel really good that they are a high performing team that's driving positive change.
Yeah.
So thank you, Stacy, for joining. One of my favorite topics. I could geek out on this all day long. We'll have you back for sure. And for those of you watching, thanks for joining. Please feel free to share ideas for future topics, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Jennifer.